Children of the Night, Chapter 24. From the North. 2 months had passed since the 3 immortal siblings had started their counter-invasion. All 3 of them were on their way to Canterlot now, that was already under siege. Cadence and Diamond had arrived early, keeping Chrysalis and her changelings confined within Canterlot. They could not enter the city either, since Chrysalis had raised a barrier, and they were unable to break it just yet, but that had resulted in her forces being disorganized. Celestia, Luna, and Moonsinger had been able to retake most of the cities without much resistance. The changeling queen had called all her forces back to Canterlot to prepare for her final stand. Diamond stood amongst the 20,000 drones she had bred before coming here. They had established a firing line in front of the barrier, shooting magical balls at it non-stop. At the other end of their line she could see Cadence. It was a strange sight for her. The princess was now the perfect image of a changeling queen, but still had her soft ice-colored mane and tail. Even her wings had not changed much, they had just turned black. Cadence noticed Diamond staring at her, and trotted over to her. "So, what do you think? When will they be here?" "My drones have scouted the area, and they say a group of about 29,000 ponies, led by a brown alicorn, is closing in on the city." "Light brown? I don't think I know that one. Maybe one of Aunt Luna's children? Could your scout see what her cutie mark was?" "That's the funny part. They say she has the same cutie mark as your Aunt Luna." "Oh, then I do know her. It's Moonsinger, but the last time I saw her she was a unicorn." "Moonsinger, you say? Well, then this battle will be over quicker than we thought." "You know her?" "Yes. About 400 years ago, when I was approaching adulthood, my mother gave me a task to prove my talents. She convinced me she wanted to have peaceful relationships with the Garden of Shadows, which is your aunt's refuge. I was young at the time, and did as I was told. I tried and established diplomatic relationships with the garden, and even stayed there for a while. They were all so nice to me, and Moonsinger was the ambassador. In the end, we were very close to an agreement, and had almost become something like friends, when my mother showed her true colors. At the day we were to sign the peace treaty on neutral ground in the forest, she tried to get the jump on Moonsinger, to replace her with one of our drones. I have never again received such a beating, or been so close to my death. I helped Moonsinger escape my mother's treachery, and was punished for it. If she is an alicorn now, Mother will be in for more than she has bargained for." "What do you mean? I know Chrysalis was strong enough to overtake my Aunt Celestia." "Celestia? I beg your pardon, but in a fight Celestia would not stand a chance against Moonsinger, I came to know. Once her eyes begin to glow, even my mother turned tail on every encounter they had afterwards. The empowerment they receive from that magical spark of them is nothing to be taken lightly." "But Moonsinger told me that there have been drones that killed her kin." "Oh, yes, but it's very difficult, and impossible if you encounter them inside the garden. You have to play with them, so they use up most of their spark's energy. When they are weakened like that, you can easily overtake them, but Moonsinger is special. Try to play around with her so she gets tired and you play with your very life. You know that our kin calls her Bloodsinger?" "I had no idea. Why is that?" "Because she is very good with any magic that involves any kind of liquid. If you injure her, or she injures you, she can practically draw the blood from your body and use it as a weapon. I myself have seen her form a whip out of a fallen comrade's blood, hitting every drone that so much as got close to her. Now you might think that a whipping should not really hurt us, but you are wrong. Her whips are as sharp as razor blades, and cut through our natural armor with ease." "Sounds pretty powerful." "Indeed." The 2 friends felt silence, awaiting their reinforcements that were sure to come soon. Moonsinger galloped through a field of flowers, closely followed by her forces. The recapture of Philadelphia and Muzzleton had gone much smoother than the one in Huffington, but she had lost way more forces in them. While Muzzleton was just a small backwater town with barely 100 changelings in it, Philadelphia's defenders had been prepared for her. She had to take the town under siege, since she was unable to break through, risking losing most of her forces. In approximately 2 hours' time she would finally be in Canterlot. If she could get there fast, she could get rid of Chrysalis for her mother, and then forget this whole war even happened. Sure, the dead would never be forgotten, but she knew that, as long as it went on, she was just not able to make peace with herself. Luna's forces trotted through Ponyville, and were greeted with cheers of joy and acknowledgment. Her campaign in the south had taken longer than she had anticipated. Every time she had thought that she had finally eliminated all the changelings that hid there, she had found another hideout of these insect-like creatures. She had to admit that she had felt a perverted kind of pleasure every time they discovered another hideout. She would charge in there alone and come out bloody. Mostly it were only groups of 10 or 20, but she took her time with them on occasion. Celestia was also on her way to Canterlot, but her forces had just stopped back in the Garden of Shadows a week ago, so they would be the last to arrive at the city. Celestia envied her sister, who had passed through the garden the day before, with almost all her forces intact. She, on the other hand, had lost over half her troops, due to her mind being occupied with the whereabouts of Twilight Sparkle and the unwillingness of Solar Flare to talk to her at all. Chrysalis stood on the balcony of her bedchamber, holding the barrier protecting her city up. She could feel several great magical auras coming her way, but she was prepared. They would not arrive all at once. If she just could find a way to separate them from their forces, she could pick them off one by one. An idea struck her, as she remembered something from a very long time ago, and a smile played around her lips. She would not give up Equestria that easily. If her plan worked, then she would deal with that rebellion, and then start recapturing the rest of Equestria. Stepping back inside, she began to bark orders at her drones to prepare for the attack. Yes, if she played her cards correctly, then even the Garden of Shadows would be hers at the end of this conflict. Back in Ponyville, Big Macintosh watched the Princess of the Night and her forces pass through. He had volunteered to join them in their fight, but had been stationed as a rear guard to ensure Ponyville was not taken from them again. He didn't like it too much. Just as the others, he wanted to be in the thick of the fighting. He wanted to be there when they found AJ and the others. Princess Luna passed a particular red stallion that had an ancient battle axe slung over his back and approached him. She knew that stallion from her former visits to Ponyville, and she also knew that he was a brother of the Element of Honesty. "Hello there, Big Macintosh. Whatever is the matter? You look downcast."
"Oh, hi there, Princess. I was just thinking that I would like to join your forces."
"I know, Macintosh. Not knowing the fate of your sister and her friends must be infuriating for you, but please believe me that you can do more good if you stay here. Some pony has to watch the rear to make sure no pony attacks us from behind. You are strong, faithful, and would never let any pony down. That is why I trust you with that task."
"But—"
"No buts, Big Mac. If the changelings were to somehow retake Ponyville or any of the other towns, we would be cut off from supplies and the garden. And if they were to put up an anti-teleportation barrier in the area, then they could pick us off easily. I need you and the others here to prevent that from happening." Big Macintosh's cheek began to flush as he saluted her.
"I will do my best, Princess."
"Good. And I promise you in return that, if I get any word of what happened to Applejack, I will let you know. Luna walked away from the stallion, trying to keep her face straight. She knew what had happened to Applejack and the others, but just didn't have the heart to tell him. Just this morning a messenger from Cadance had found her and reported that they had Canterlot under siege. She knew that Cadance would keep the changelings busy until they arrived, but she was worried about Moonsinger. 2 nights ago Flametail had come to her. Thinking that her daughter was in trouble, she had immediately wanted to gather her forces, but he had told her otherwise. The tale he had told her was not a good one. After all of this was over, she had to find a way to revert Moonsinger back to a unicorn. Were she to stay an alicorn, there was a very good chance of her getting corrupted. Luna could not stand the thought of her daughter becoming a being similar to Nightmare Moon. She increased her speed and began to gallop towards Canterlot. Her forces behind her quickly adjusted their speed to hers.